So our first speaker is actually David Basak, creator, director from the White Horse Immersive Studio, USA.
Hello. Greetings and hello from the United States. My name is David Basak, creative director of White Horse Immersive, also a professor of immersive performance at Purchase College, State University of New York. I'd like to thank my hosts at the Chinese Performing Arts Expo for their gracious invitation to allow me to speak about immersive theater and technology. So I'm going to begin with 3 questions. How do we enter the story? How can we live without a narrator? And do we have the courage to create with our audience? The title of my talk is Without a Frame: Strategies for Immersive Experience Design. So how do we enter the story? In my childhood, the stories my mother would read me excited my imagination. She read me adventure stories, scary stories, stories about imaginary worlds. Sometimes these books would be illustrated, and at times I needed to close my eyes and picture these places and characters. The sound of my mother's voice would carry me in a room of shadows to distant lands. As a child, I nearly hurt myself once, taking the back off of a television set, looking for the characters who had left the screen. I would draw characters, place them in glass vases to give them 3 dimensions. When I got older, I would take off into the woods, recreate TV shows with my friends, and I playing the characters. Naturally, I was drawn to the theater, where I later became a director. I would like to share some of the images from my many professional theater productions. As a director, I have had the joy of being immersed, talking to characters and designers, all working together to make the story come to life and alive on stage. After earning my degree in theater, I began my career at Lincoln Center. After there, I worked in casting and new plays, meeting famous actors with great theater people such as Arthur Miller, Peter Brook, and Stephen Sondheim. And in a short space of time, my theater company in the United States, Novel Stages, it was there that I began the great work of bringing novels to life on stage. My desire to enter the story, which began many years ago with those books my mother read me, had become the adventure of my professional life. In 2007, I began to explore media entangled work, learned about transmedia, and began to understand the potential of performances and exhibitions that offer the audience the ability to pass through the frame and immerse themselves into the experience. I had the great fun of working to design a theme park with stories and games for an audience. Here's a little piece of our proposal from Ocean Flower Island. Immersive. It's the shift away from the traditional story where you only listen and watch what someone else is saying or doing. Immersive is the new idea that now you can enter the story as a character or as yourself. The frame that once held you back is gone, and you may roam around in the world of the story. So, can we live without a narrator? The stage, the cinema, television, and phones are all frames, rectangles, squares, windows. Over the years, artists have delivered their imagination through a frame, and yes, traditional framing has offered us a vast view into the world, but it has also left us outside the bakery window hungry, our only participation through our imagination, separated by the frame, has kept us from enjoying the dessert. So the frame offers us so much, but it has several design limitations. Framing generates a story with strong impulses, but it leaves us on a straight path, always moving forward, cause and effect model of reality. The director needs to teach the audience the intention of the story. The frame is the core of the lesson. There's no way to customize the frame for different audiences. One size must fit all. Work is supplied in non-interactive mediums. Work is offered without dialogue or feedback, and work is purchased and paid in full in advance. There are few possibilities of discussing the work. It flows in one direction from the creators to the audience, full stop. A single mass market approach. Minor modifications for diverse platforms, minor modifications for diverse audiences. Simplified content, simple signs, icons of the main, since the only important work is in the frame of the main event. So can we consider designing without a frame? Immersive design. Let's first remember who is immersed. It's the audience. And what enables them to be immersed? It's the absence of the frame. And when there is no frame, we look where we please, we act on what we choose, and our environment responds to us. Some images of the variety of immersive content that have emerged over the last 10 years. The question for professional creatives is, do we have the courage to create with our audiences? These are the 10 years that the public's use of emerging interactive technology to navigate video games, real-world travel, and social relationships have exploded. The public has learned that with a computer and a phone, they can design, discover, and shape their journeys with themselves at the center of the experience. How do we welcome them into the story worlds we have designed? How do we strategize for their participation so that they generate adventure and at their own pace? How do we engage them so that they take away the feeling that this experience demonstrates the high value of our production? So immersive is a strategy for experiencing. We no longer require a story, but a story world will be greatly appreciated. Audiences need narrative elements, but no framing. Audience need a narrative design, but one with many pathways, an array of choices, challenges, and stimulations. Audiences need guidelines for adventure. Audiences will find what they need if we provide them some games and some maps to explore. Float, swim, or dive into the content. The audience will insist on the kind of experience they want. Interactive, environmentally engaging world designs, theme parks, immersive theater, escape rooms, multiplayer games in live, virtual, and augmented reality, multiple platforms across multiple mediums in one genre or in multiple genres, segments inviting the audience to buy more and more access. The audience gives feedback that changes the story world. Multiple advertising platforms aimed at diverse audiences. Individual audience members are discovered with data-generated AI. Audience become marketers with fan content on social platforms. So the advantages over traditional framing is that there's a profound engagement. Audiences are pressed to participate and use their social skills and use their imagination. Audiences are inside the story world and no longer looking through the window. The environment responds to the audience and it interacts with them. So let me recap. Traditional way of thinking versus immersive way of thinking. A linear versus a multi-pathway. A story framed as opposed to a story experience. A one-size-fits-all versus an audience chooses. And a traditional way of supply. One direction from director toward the audience or multiple pathways. Story dominating or story offering adventure. And marketing. Mass market, approach for all, or individualized market where the audience participates in the marketing. And this chart looks at where the word in traditional design transforms in the word for immersive design. So story becomes story world. Adaptation becomes interactive. Directed narrative is emergent narrative. Frame becomes world. Director becomes creative director or creator. Audience or user becomes guest. Auteur becomes audience agency. Audiovisual becomes psychological. Film becomes an experience. And linear becomes dynamic. In 2018, I co-founded a company called White Horse Immersive, committed to creating immersive work for both media companies with their existing projects, as well as designing and creating White Horse immersive work for audiences. Here's a few images. Here's my co-founders and myself. Here's some images of various projects that we've been working on, both for existing clients and original projects that we're developing as our own IP. This final project that I'm showing you, Extraordinary Voyages, an immersive sci-fi time travel adventure using the work of Jules Verne, takes us into a hybrid immersive performance that is both theater, museum exhibit, theme park, and virtual reality experience. And the audience moves within the story and the story world through each phase of this adventure. In late 2020, the Shangshan Art Center will open in Hangzhou, China, where the White Horse Immersive Company will begin a multi-year residence. The goal is to create and produce exciting work in live theater, theme parks, and virtual reality. The Shangshan Art Center and the White Horse Infinity Lab will be a landmark for immersive performance in China, the US, and Europe, with original projects created with partners from across the globe, presenting the latest trends in performance, experiences, collaborating with international artists. Immersive is here and growing. The emerging storytelling of our time is immersive. We see everywhere the power of interactive devices and software to hold our attention and engage our lives with profound effects in all aspects of social, family, and civic engagement. The audience, which was once content to only listen and watch, wants to get up and engage with interaction and immersion. We see in the cultural sphere the success of immersive restaurants, music venues, sports arenas, theater, theme parks, escape rooms. And looking around the corner, virtual, augmented, and mixed reality will change education, healthcare, manufacturing, and entertainment. There are 2 trailers of live immersive theater entertainment in virtual reality that you should know about. One is Shakespeare's Tempest, live inside of virtual reality, and Pandora X, a creative reality game set on Mount Olympus. Enjoy.
Let's set the stage. Put on your headset. Imagine a ship at sea. The illusion of a storm, a tempest, a production sunk, a theater closed, but I, the actor, am live, ready to perform my role. Good Prospero will bring the play to life with the help of my magic and you, my spirits. We are ready now to perform together. Approach my Ariel. Come.
So what do you say? Are you ready to do something? Now remember, Zeus is a little temperamental. We have to approach with caution. The chorus and I have come to deliver you a message.
Thank you for your kind attention and ironically experiencing this talk through a video frame. Thank you and be well.
Although he can't be with us here, we still would like to give him a round of applause. Okay, the next speaker is also a foreign speaker. He is the creator of HBO's Westworld Immersive and Interactive Experience, Mark Harris. David Bazak gave us a systematic understanding of immersive strategy and has shared with us some case studies. And I think we're going to learn more from Mark Harris. Now let's watch the video from Mark.
Hey everybody, thank you for having me. My name is Mark Harris. I focus on storytelling and experience, immersion and interaction, experience master planning, technology strategy, and digital transformation. And today I wanted to talk to you about what I call an immersive state of mind. I wanted to step back a little bit from the practical aspects of making immersive work and talk about a couple of principles that I've used over the past decade in pretty much all of my work. These two principles are the passive trance-like state that allows you to be pulled into a story and empathize with other characters. And the second principle is collaboration between storyteller and audience. And this one deserves a little bit of elaboration. In this sense, the storyteller gives the audience members enough details so that the audience members can ask, what if? What if I were stepping into a great TV show? What if I were transported back in time to battle dinosaurs? It's this what if that allows the audience member to become immersed in their minds. Now, I'm going to take a slight detour and talk about books. I have been an obsessive reader my entire life. And what I've realized is both of these qualities can be found in great novels. Every good author puts you in this passive trance-like state so that you can empathize with characters. And they also allow you to collaborate by giving you details. When you read a book, your mind has to actively create the story based on the words the author gives you. And what I love about thinking about this from the book point of view is all an author needs is words to completely immerse you, to make you forget where you are, make me miss my train stop. So I always like to come back to looking at books as one example of these principles. So let's look at the first principle, the passive trance-like states. This is the state we have to be in order to empathize with other characters. But it's also a state where we don't act upon our feelings. When we're in this state, when we're watching a play or a movie or reading a book or any other traditional media, we fall into this state where we feel all the things the characters feel. We go through their journeys, but we don't act upon them because we're in a safe space. I always like to come back to this quote from Norman Holland, who's a literary theorist that I study. And the quote is, "I watch Othello strangling Desdemona, and I do not rush to the stage to stop him." So you feel it, you have hatred for Othello, pity for him, you feel sorry for Desdemona, but it's not like a real world situation where you would go try to stop the murder in progress. So the second principle, collaboration between storyteller and audience. Now, this is where the storyteller gives the audience enough details so that the audience can ask, what if? And then they create the immersion in their own minds. This condition comes from minute attention to detail. And of course, Nobody is better at that than Disney, especially at their newest park, Galaxy's Edge. This park has details in every single corner, details that really help me ask that question: what if I could go to the world of Batuu? What if I could enter into a cantina there? What if I could really fly the Millennium Falcon? At every single level, there are details that help you ask this what if question. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how I've applied these principles to two pieces of my own work. The first one is a small, independent, immersive theater piece that premiered at Lincoln Center in New York called The Hierarchy. And the second is a larger scale experiential activation at San Diego and New York Comic-Cons for HBO's Westworld. And I chose these two because in my work, I think if you stick to the principles, it doesn't really matter what your budgets are or how much technology you have or any other thing. If you stick to these principles, you can create immersion no matter what the experience is. So let's start with the hierarchy. So in this experience, this is an immersive theater piece that brought the audience face to face with a dangerous cult at a cult recruiting event. Audiences engage with cult members in different activities, which were based on real cult recruiting activities. And then the audience members get to decide, do they want to believe the cult and maybe join? Or are they going to remain skeptical? And do they want to actually expose the cult for what they really are? So let's go to principle 1, passive trance-like state. So one of the ways that I do this in immersive theater work is through guided performance. Now, the actors will engage with audience members in very personal ways, and those ways will feel interactive, but we often script those interactions so that they are guided. So even if it's improvisation, the actor is leading the audience member through a story or through a scene. And this helps induce that state where you can just feel it because you don't actually have very much to do in that scene, even though it feels like you're interacting. Let's go to principle number 2, collaboration with the audience. And this comes through the details I mentioned when I talked about Disney. World building everywhere. Every single touch point, every single detail is an opportunity to bring the audience into your world. Now, the hierarchy did this through every sense, okay? We, down on the left, we had these amulets. And these amulets were prized by the cult members in the mythology of the story, and each one was handcrafted. But audience members, as they leveled up into the cult through cult activities, audience members might themselves win one of these handcrafted artifacts, and they could feel it in their hand and they could take it home and it becomes a prized possession. So one of the other ways we pulled audiences in was these videos. The cult had testimonial videos of people trying to convince you of how great the cult is. And we would play these videos on screens while audience members were waiting in line for other experiences. Now, this served a dual purpose, right? So that you have a kind of entertainment in line, and you have an entertainment that can scale while you're waiting for these more personal experiences. But there was also this world building built in. The videos would contain clues. And if you decided to follow those clues, you might go down a rabbit hole where you could learn the dark truth about the cult. You could find people that went missing. You could find people who have information that will expose the cult for what it is. Now, another sense we engaged here was smell. There was almost no more powerful sense than smell for igniting emotion and memory. So as audience members left, sometimes they would have this smell on their persons, the smell of this custom perfume that we created explicitly for the event. And audience members told me that weeks later they would put on the coat that they wore to that event, they would smell that perfume, and then that would take them right back to the events. So smell is a really great tool for this world building, for details, and helping immerse people and getting them to ask that what if question. What if I were engaging with occults? Now, the last detail I'll call attention to is the programs themselves. Now, every theater piece has a program. Our programs were in-world. So they not only told you the structure of the evening that you could expect, but they were layered with story world mythology, characters that you could then go look up if you wanted to, beliefs of the cults. Every single detail is an opportunity to grab the audience's imagination and get them to ask, what if I were actually here? Okay, so the last bit I'll talk about with collaboration with the audience in this piece is familiar game mechanics. Now, I said that there were a lot of cult recruiting activities. Well, we based a number of these on games that people were familiar with, like Truth or Dare. Everybody knows how to play that game. And so people could get immersed into the world and ask, what if I were here with occults, without having to learn new skills. It was very easy to teach people these games, and then they could forget about it and just get immersed. Okay, so I said I was going to talk about that independent immersive theater piece. Now let's move on to a much larger scale, professional level activation for one of the largest TV shows in the past decade, HBO's Westworld. So the first thing we'll look at is the passive trance-like state. Again, guided performance from real actors. One part of this experience was an immersive theater installation. Now, the actors, once again, use scripted or outlined improvisation to lead the audience through an experience which felt interactive, but really wasn't. And so the audience could fall back into that state that I'm talking about. But this one went a step further. When I did the experience design for this, I set it up so that as much as possible, when you showed up for your appointment at Westworld, you were the only person there, or you and your partner, as in this photograph here. And so there's two reasons for that. The first reason is we really wanted you to feel like you were the kind of billionaire who could afford to go to Westworld. We wanted to immerse you with that feeling. There would not be crowds around. There was no noise. It wasn't like you were just one of many. You were very special in this world. But the second thing is that detail removed crowds and noise and lines and all the things that might disturb you at a comic book convention. They're loud, they're hot, you're tired because you're running around all day, and this served as an oasis that you walked into. So it helped with this passive trance-like state because we removed all of the distractions before you even got into the experience. Okay, so let's go to principle number 2 again. Collaboration with the audience, world building everywhere. Every single detail is an opportunity. And I'll start with the picture up in the top corner. So when you signed up for the experience, you were given an appointment card. But again, we wanted to treat you like the kind of billionaire who could afford to go to Westworld. So we didn't just give you a cardboard card. We gave you this laser-etched, high-quality metal card. And again, this became a souvenir, a keepsake, something that a real billionaire would get when they went to Westworld. Now, another detail to look at there is the other photograph. That's the inside of one of the cowboy hats. Now, many of you, I'm sure, know the show by now, and when guests go to Westworld, they choose a white hat and a black hat. Well, we had hats made with the Westworld logo stamped inside of them. Again, every little detail is an opportunity to get the audience member to ask, whoa, what if I really were in Westworld right now? Okay, so now I will talk a bit about technology. So again, world building everywhere. In the show Westworld, characters often carry tablets that they use to do their business. So we gave the actors these tablets, and we created what looks like a custom Delos operating system for the tablets, so that when audience members caught a glimpse of a tablet in an actor's hands, they saw a Delos operating system. They didn't see a Samsung or Android or iPhone or anything else that would make them think they were in the world now. They saw something that made them go, whoa, what if I really were in Westworld right now? But these tablets also served another function. One of the reasons I love having live actors, whether it's in live performance or a VR performance or whatever, is live actors can adjust their performance in real time based on who you are or who I am, based on how you are reacting to the performance or I am reacting to the performance. They can adjust timing, attitude, emotion. And so what this means is live actors can always give you the sense that this performance was crafted for you, not everybody in the world, for you. And it's that specificity that I think really, really brings immersive work, really brings it home for me. So we took it a little bit further with this activation. Now, down in the bottom, you can see there's a red circle there, right? So that red circle is highlighting some buttons we put in the tablets. Now, when I set up all the technology for this, I allowed the actors to control certain special effects with those buttons, so that the actors who are in the room with the audience member can decide, oh, now is the right time to trigger this effect for this particular audience member. Oh, this audience member over here is moving a little bit slower in their pace, so I'll trigger the effect now. And so this gave us the ability to improvise with technology. Things weren't canned, things weren't on timers. The actual technology was improvising with the actor's performance. So the last bit I'll talk about with the Westworld experience was, now at some of the activations, you went through this immersive theater piece where the actors welcomed you in and you saw the tablets and you got the hat and all of that. But then at some of them, you got to actually step into Westworld through virtual reality. The HBO teams had created a full virtual reality Westworld that you could walk into. You put on the headset, you had the controllers, which served as a 6-shooter pistol when you were in the VR, and you got to have a gun battle, and then you got to be taken behind the scenes and see what the evil Delos Corporation is up to. So this activation really encompassed a full range: immersive theater, physical details, live actors, and then virtual reality to make one entire experience.
Have you ever questioned the nature of your reality?
HBO's Westworld is set in a futuristic theme park where the virtual meets the physical, leaving visitors unsure of where the fantasy ends and reality begins.
Are you real?
Well, if you can't tell, does it matter?
This provided the inspiration for an enhanced virtual reality experience, one where the story began long before guests put on their headset. We started by building realistic outposts of the fictional Delos Corporation at both TechCrunch Disrupt and the New York Comic-Con, designed to immerse guests into the story world instantly.
Welcome to Westworld.
Greeted by immaculately dressed hosts, guests came to realize all was not as it seemed, and that these represented artificially intelligent machines. With carefully scripted performances that echoed specific scenes from the show, our live hosts literally opened the door to an immersive VR experience developed by HBO Interactive and powered by the HTC Vive. Transported to the Westworld Park, guests met with a seductive host who matched their personal taste. Then, they strapped on six-shooters to test their aim before the darker, hidden side of the world emerged in a series of terrifying twists.
We're gonna have to recode this entire module from scratch.
By blurring the line between the physical and the virtual, the Westworld experience seamlessly transported fans to the show's story world, evolving what a destination VR experience can deliver. So much so that our guests didn't talk about experiencing a simulation. They talked about actually going to Westworld.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Mark Harris shared with us 2 of his projects, how he created it, and why he thinks the design of detail and technology is important for immersive experience. Now I would like to give the floor to the 3rd speaker. So this speaker is versed in the escape rooms experience. I think many young people are very fond of this form of game. So usually it's about solving the riddles. But nowadays, both in China and abroad, there are a lot of performing arts and technology involved in the escape rooms. And this project, created by Victor Van Doorn, ranked number 7 in the world of its kind. So Victor will talk about the immersive experience in escape rooms and how he leveraged technology to achieve that.
Hello, my name is Victor Van Doorn. I am one of the founders of Sherlock Mystery Experiences in Amsterdam. This is what I look like when I'm being tickled, and I would like to take you through what we call the 4 experience stages, and you'll find out that this has a lot to do with something we love to experiment with. It's blurring the line between fiction and reality. Now, on that line between fiction and reality, there's a couple of gradations, a couple of steps of how real or not some experience feels. And so on the fiction side, there's pretending. That's playing a game together and being aware that you're playing a game together. Then, a little bit more towards reality, there is immersive, what we nowadays call as immersive. Of course, there's a lot of things that are being called as immersive, but what I mean with this is that you are aware that you are either playing a game or you're part of some constructed experience, but everything looks so real, everything feels so real, and you're so immersed in that fictional reality that it doesn't feel like you're pretending as much anymore. One step further upwards towards reality is, whoa, huh? We don't really have a good word for it. Perhaps you can come up with one. But it is that moment when things happen where you're starting to doubt whether you are actually in a constructed reality. The next step, which is close by, is what in the 1995 movie The Game, Michael Douglas experiences. In that movie, it's not quite clear whether he's in a game or he's just really being messed with in reality. And just to give you some examples of experiences on this line, in the pretend category you have Dungeons and Dragons, where you role play and you are very much aware that you're role playing. Something we love, perhaps you have experienced as well, are the immersive adventures of secret cinema. We, as Sherlock, created an experience in Amsterdam called The Vault, where we play with the whoa, huh? Kind of, is this real? Kind of play. And then there's another company called Odyssey Works, which does amazing work, really diving into people's lives and changing it perhaps for the better by giving them a months-long private and custom personalized experience. We're going to dive into that later. Now, a term that you may have heard that is used a lot in LARPing, live action role-playing, and also in our industry, escape rooms, is the magic circle. And what we mean with the magic circle is that there's a grey normal life, or there is just the life that you're used to, and then there's a circle, you step into it, and then the magic world opens. So here you have a very clear division between the magical, beautiful, starry world within the circle and the grey, normal world around it. And what we're going to talk about, and what we as Sherlock love playing with, is infusing a little bit of that magic around the experience. Now, I mentioned before that we discern between 4 different experience stages. The first one we call the invitation, the second one the run-up, the third the event itself, which is what is classically considered an experience or the experience, and then post-game, the extension of the experience after the event has ended. Now, the invitation is actually one of the most important parts because it sets the stage and it primes the adventurer or the player or the participant to raise their expectations in a way that they actually help the enjoyment of the experience that's about to come. Now, in mythology, this is called the call to adventure. This is a term that Joseph Campbell coined in his Hero with a Thousand Faces. And to show you what I mean, here's a small example from a modern classic that I expect you to know, Harry Potter. Now, I believe that it is the challenge for us as experience makers to make the invitation to our adventure feel as exciting and perhaps even life-altering as this letter to this young boy. Closing off the subject of the invitation, we go into the run-up, which is the phase of anticipating the experience that's about to happen. It's a very exciting phase because you've already bought in. Literally, you've bought a ticket, and now there's a set amount of time, sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's days, until the event takes place. And with our most celebrated game, which is called The Vault, this is, I think, our highest honor that we got with this game is that we are the seventh highest ranking escape room in the world in 2019. And of course, there are 6 games that scored higher, but this was out of 21,000 different escape rooms by the Terpika Award. So we were very proud of that, and I'm just going to share some examples from the Vault of how we play with the anticipation that in the run-up to the experience. Here's just a few images from the experience, so you know it's a heist experience where you break into an actual real-life vault complex. Of course, you go through the necessary lasers, and all the cliches and fantasies that you'd know from movies like, well, any heist movie, actually. In the run-up, there's the first contact. And the first contact is oftentimes wasted. With theater productions, with escape rooms alike, the first contact you get, or that the player gets from you, often looks like this. I think that's terrible. It's very practical, it shows the location, the price, and like dress code in a very boring way. It's terrible. I think this is a wasted opportunity. And this example is from America, where perhaps the culture is more cautious in terms of being sued if you don't put all the terms and conditions in the opening email. But for contrast, this is what the opening email from the Vault looks like. Make sure your crew is on the 5th floor of the CPAX garage at exactly the time of the booking. You'll be posing as art collectors, so dress accordingly. Make sure your phone is charged and you're not followed. Lateness will not be tolerated. That's it. That's all they need to know. and it gets people very excited. Now, of course, you have to look at this in the context of an email program. You see this not completely full screen, and you see that there's a book, like there's a contractor at Sherlock that sends you this. So there's the pretend part of the immersion of the reality fiction scale, but it's a world of difference. Now, a second thing we do with the run-up phase is that we actually train our people, and that has a dual function. First of all, it has the function of getting the anticipation up, but secondly, and very importantly, it actually educates people to have a better experience. Now, this image is an image of the final vaults that people have to open, the final safes, I mean. And as you can see, these are quite old safes, and they have those typical rotating dials in the as a security measure. And it turns out that, at least in the Netherlands, people didn't really know how to open such old antique safes anymore. And what this turned into is that we have this beautiful experience with an ending with such vaults, such safes. And if people made it to the end, they would spend 10 or 20 minutes trying to open this safe, which is terrible because it's a very boring experience. You don't want to be finicking with a lock for 10 minutes. And it wasted the enthusiasm of the players. So we thought, what can we do? Can we send like a manual to people beforehand by email? And then we thought, no, that's boring. Let's think of something else. So now when you book the vault, after a few days, you get this message. Team, we just intercepted a worrying email from our target. It seems that the final safe to crack in your mission is more complex than we originally thought. It's a classic LIPS 1903 Model A. This shit is going to require some training. We had our tech team whip up a simulation of the Model A safe mechanism and package it as an innocent smartphone game, hiding in plain sight on the App Store. Hilarious, we know. Don't know what type of phones you use, so take your pick and distribute these links among your crew, iPhone, Android links. Let's hope this will be the last time we talk. Godspeed, contractor. Now, what those links lead to is actually a quite beautiful, very simple 15 to 25 minute 3D game on the app stores that is designed specifically. Now, we designed this game specifically with the aim of practicing the lock turning mechanism because, I mean, this mechanism. This game contains a variation of this 3 times throughout the game, so that by the end they've practiced it over and over, and they know how to open such a safe. And we saw when people play this 3D game before they go to the live experience, there's an immense difference in how quickly they open the final safe. So there we combined entertainment with education, and it was a fantastic success. And also we actually won the Dutch Game Award for special application that year with it. So just one of many examples you can do in the run-up, the anticipation phase. Now, switching to the main event, I'm only going to mention one thing that we do to blur fiction and reality a little bit, and that is the beginning. So as you saw in the email, you don't start in the building, you start in a public parking garage where you actually have to find the right car parked between other actual cars and find a way to open it and get a briefcase full of heist and burglar gear from the car in order to get into the building. And then finally the building itself, of course, is also very old and beautiful, and the vaults are real vaults, so that also lends to the reality of the experience. Now what we have here, we're going to switch a little bit to a very simple model, actually a couple of dials that you can turn as a maker in creating a fictional reality. And we call it the reality mix panel, and it has a few sliders in which you can plot any experience actually. And the first one being intimate to grand, second one personalized to standardized, interactive versus passive, challenged versus all access, free roam or on rails, and is there any role playing or are you you? Now, as you can see, we plotted our own experience here. This is the vault, which is very intimate because you are in a small group. The spaces are quite small. Even though there are a lot of spaces, there are 14 different spaces for this experience. They are all relatively confined. It is rather standardized. We only have a few things that differ per group. It is highly interactive. If you don't act, the story will not move forward. There's a lot of parts that are challenges, so puzzles and things that are locked, and you have to earn your access as opposed to just being able to go anywhere. It is quite on rails. There is only a few variations in the order of things possible, so relatively on rails. Now, skipping ahead to the last phase of the 4 stages of experiences is post-game. Of course, this is a term that we use in our kind of game world. There are other models which call this the extension. It is basically about what do you bring from the magic circle into your normal life. And we've already had this example of the coin that is given at the end of an escape room game by Logic Locks to give to other friends as a discount. What we do with Sherlocked is we give the people that completed our games in time this small personalized cross keys badge to wear, which is actually every single one of them has a laser engraving of a different serial number, and we link that serial number to your email so that the people who played our games, and especially the one which are a test for a secret society, we have their info on file if they want to be kept on file. And so in Amsterdam, where we are mostly active, there are people walking the streets wearing our logo as if it were part of a clan that they are proud to be part of. So if you can create an experience that emotionally touches your audience in such a way that they will proudly wear merchandise, and if you can make the merchandise in an appealing way that is not too branded, like the coin or this pin, then you know you have something special on your hands, and they will tell other people about your brand without even being asked to. Now, I could go on for ages on this, but I've run over my time a lot already. For now, have a great day, and I look forward to meeting you someday. Ciao.
Thank you very much. We heard the presentations from 3 foreign speakers. I don't know how you feel after listening to the presentation. For me, actually, I feel a little bit puzzled because for them who actually talk about immersive theater as well as escape room, all kinds of details and all the setup, etc. For me, I think that all kinds of the technologies, they mentioned how to use these technologies to enhance the immersive experience. Through the previous presentations, I got a broader concept, but I don't have the details. Because they just deliver remote presentation, we cannot ask questions, but luckily we have participants on site who is actually Mr. Wen from Institute of Culture Tourism Studies and Liad Group. I think you may not familiar with Liad Group. Actually, in terms of performance arts technology, Liad Group is actually taking the lead, and they are also paying a lot of attention on R&D of immersive technologies, and to apply these technologies on some of the culture and the tourism projects. Now we would like to give the floor to Mr. Wen. Thank you very much. I'm very lucky to be invited by the organizer. I heard 3 wonderful presentations. They helped us a lot. Liad Group, I'd like to brief you about what we did. I think that most of you know Liad because we actually manufacture LED panels. We are number 1 in the whole world for the production, and for the micro DVD, we are actually number 1 in the world because Samsung's project doesn't put into operation. And the other is the optical environment in the cities. Actually, we did a lot of efforts in this regard. And thirdly, the segment is about culture and tourism. I think that Mark and David talked a lot about creativity. Actually, it's a combination of technology, games, companies, and practices, etc. And the last one, I'd like to talk about VR. How we actually combined wonderful ideas into the reality. So we will have an introduction about that. Actually, we're also an internationalized group in the United States, Europe, and the other overseas countries. We have our factories. So we benefited from this international trade. I think that you know Liad because of LED panels. In 2019, we have 2 projects, number 1 and number 2. And number 1 project is in the National Day holiday. We're very happy to participate in the arrangement and setup of the celebration of the National Day holiday. You can see the background, the 5-star flags. It's not difficult for us to realize this effect. When we participate in the creation, we think that actually at night it would be more effective. The other thing is that previously we just participate as the equipment provider, and in the 7th World Servicemen Sports activity, we actually participate as a creator of the content. You can see that visual immersion of the audience. As a result, there will also be the lighting system outside the sports venue. As a result, you can see that everything has been greatly reflected on site. LED panels, the projections, the dynamic capture technologies. We also cooperated with Director Wang Chaoge. Just as I mentioned before, actually immersion means, on one hand, immersion of forms. Previously, the actors just act on stage, and later there's interactions between the actors and the audience. For Director Wang Chaoge, they actually pursue changes of the form of performance. For us, we actually like to have some special treatment about the lighting, about the staging, etc. So this is the formal changes. And later there will be other changes in other dimensions. And when we participate in these projects, we found there are some problems. For Liad Group, if we want to combine arts and culture, we emphasized on 2 aspects. We can summarize this with 1 sentence. For the traditional theaters, it's just performance and watching. And from 2.0 version, you just be surrounded by the actual scenes and to watch the performance. And for 3.0 version, the audience is just walk and enjoy and experience. But actually, you have to solve some problems, because in the previous 3 versions, the actors increased from 100 to 700, and on average there will be more than 800. actors and the performance. So for at least 400 actors, you can see the cost is very high. Basically, if you don't have a box office of 50 or 60 million, you will suffer from losses. So what did we try in order to solve this problem? You can see there are several cases from our side. You can see that we have to cut the headcounts and the performance. We use VR, we use AR. Actually, the visual experience hasn't been changed, but through the control of the equipment, you can feel the similar experience. This is in multi-county. We cooperated with some of the masters in Shanqi. You can see there are a total of 36 actors, and adding the administrative staff, there's only 70 people on site. This is trying to telling a story of Maotai, the three bows adding up together. You can see there are 4 things connecting together. So adding up together, there will be 7 sides. So there are some panoramic and projection technologies, and it's quite immersive. This is one of our pilot projects. As a company, we're quite familiar with equipment. The only thing is that whether we can better manage our actors and actresses. Over the past years, you can see that there's a night tour project in Gusu, and there's also some outdoor projects. This is the cooperation with China Youth Tourism Group. The first project is in Detian of Guangxi Province. You can see there are 2 kinds of immersion. First one is the audience immersed, and the other is that how can we actually immersed in the game, just as Westworld and Sherlock's experience. They discussed a lot of details. For us, we want to combine culture and games to set up the immersive things. So there are 11 routes. For these routes, there are a lot of immersive experiences. We started this project in August, and in October the 1st, it will be officially unveiled. So there's a short video clip I can share with you. There are a lot of details. When the audience arrived in the tourist center, we will actually have them meet up, and their information will be collected. And during construction and design, there are some challenges because you have to cross a river, and equipment actually installed from our side. However, at the same time, you have to make all the things artistic. You use the staging technologies to set up the things. And we can only see the fireworks here in China. And there are a lot of interactions as well. What about future? What about the post-game experience? And we have to think about the economic returns of such projects. So there is a plaza at the end of the event, and consumers can buy things and can
take further activities there. And in 2017, we did another project. This is a space 20 meters long and 7 meters wide. And because of the use of technologies, for example, your footprints will be captured on the snow ground, and the leaves will wave and shake. So it gives you a very immersive experience. And this is a CCTV show. We know the drones are widely used nowadays. We use GPS and spatial technology to enable such a performance. And this is indoor space. And we have to think about the precision and the low latency. This is what we want to achieve. And this is at the sports venue. This is the Nike basketball training course. It will collect the movement and data from each and every player. And the coach can give you personalized feedbacks based on these data. So this is based on sensor technology application in the sports field. And this is for game and theaters. This is a 15-minute VR show. We provide the underlying technology. So in a 15-minute show, the experiencer, the player, after putting on the helmet, they will enter into a virtual world. And we have designed a lot of products. And I think VR is all about transporting back through time. And you can see a lot of installations, such as fire and some weapons, the guns, the sword. You can experience that. And you can have real haptic feedbacks supported by technology. So it's just like an experience in a game, a 15-minute game. So you cannot say it's a performance or a game. It's a mixture. And many roles and actually become the player itself. This is the Sun Circus. And it uses our positioning technology. It uses our Overdrive product. And this company was based in the US, but it was most famous for film production, such as The Lord of the Rings. But today we're talking about immersive. So this Cirque du Soleil uses technology to connect the prompts with the stage. Just now we heard about the Shakespeare's Tempest. So this is made by our British colleagues. Usually, we make an animation first and the actors adapt to these movements. But in this show, it is real time. And you can customize your lines and your movements in each performance. So the movements, the facial expressions echoes the animated characters on the stage.
Idea where it's going to go. The technology that Intel deployed here for the Tempest is big. Take real-time information from a motion capture suit,
我们可以快到
map
后
that
面呢，有
onto
一
a
段
complex
现场
digital
表演。
avatar, and then project that digital avatar out through 27 projectors.
We have their desktop i7s to take marks, skeletal information, and a machine called the Big Beast, which has 120 cores. I've never seen
所以到
technical
在
setup
到
like
剧场
this.
的。
So it feels more integrated on the stage. So you can control everything and in backstage. So we cooperated with Sundermap and a company in France to create an immersive VR drama. So the audience and the players are in the same space, and it's a highly interactive experience. The audience becomes part of the show, and this theater will be staged in Hangzhou in November. This is our attempt to integrate technology with art. And now you see the players, the artists will have to carry very heavy equipments because the transmission technology is not so developed. I think in the future we can make the equipment lighter and thinner. So this technology is different from the positioning technology in games, because in this show, the position of the artists and the audience is interactive all the time. So this is a release of the Audi's new car model. And this is based on the reflection of the light. And this is data collection to create a virtual idol. So these are real people, the real costumes, but you can make a virtual copy based on real-time rendering technology. So this may be used for future concerts. So after we collected the data of this singer or dancer, the data will be imported into a computer and make a virtual copy. So after we collected the data, the computer can do the rest. So it is based on the moving points, the skeletons, and the skin. There are some key points in this technology. And this technology was displayed last year. This is a hybrid shooting system. We have a display room in Beijing. We have an AR studio. We have to combine the characters with the background. You have to adjust the background so that it can adapt to the movements of the character on the forefront. And we have a company under Liad, and it develops these core technologies. I think many of you are experts on interactive technologies. You know the open source API and SDK so that developers can do a lot of things. And the proactive tracking technology is to track the rotation and movement. And the automatic calibration technology will enable large space theater in the future. So the technologies can be coordinated between the several cameras. But what about 100 or 200 cameras? It would be much more difficult to coordinate. So this technology can track 50 to 100. So based on these technologies, we have made a lot of projects and done a lot of work with our partners across China. Okay, a recap of what we do: the LED smart display, holographic presentations, and spatial positioning and tracking in the VR and AR. We hope that you can help us develop more technologies to support more creative performances. Okay, I want to quote from Flaubert. Art becomes more and more IT driven, and technology becomes more artistic. I hope that one day we can bring the two together in a better way. Thank you.